everybody, welcome. This is AI with Craig, and I'm delighted to be here with Alan, who has a wealth of experience in technology and education. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning. Well, good morning to you. Good evening from London.
Great to be speaking with you. For those who haven't read your LinkedIn profile in detail and your wealth of experiences, how about you share what you've been doing?
I normally need 3 hours for this alone. Let me do the briefest synopsis. So, ex-Apple, I was Apple's education director, head of education for Europe. My team built products like podcasting, built iTunes U, where the university is publishing the Apple portal. I was part of the team that built the first iteration of the App Store, first iteration of education apps, initially engagement across Europe. Then in 2007, I was either promoted or excommunicated and sent to China, having caused so much chaos in Europe, they thought they'd drop me on the Chinese. Spent just over 2.5 years in Beijing building out Apple's business. Returned to London at the end of 2009, beginning of 2010. Not entirely out of choice, banking crisis, and there were changes going on in the Apple team in China. And returning to London, basically unemployable. So too old, too expensive, and an ego bigger than any room you're sitting in, which is, I would point out, not a good career move. And then the reinvention was working with hedge funds, venture capital, angel investors, family offices, looking predominantly at education tech, health tech, blockchain, not crypto, blockchain services, and now conversational AI. And I have a portfolio of businesses in those areas. I'm also a senior external advisor to McKinsey, but not sure whether seniors because I'm older, whether I have any domain expertise. You're about to find out in the next 15, 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. What a number of things that you've done and led. I think that Apple has done incredible things in your time around education and surfacing good things that are happening and making sure that it's accessible to educators in schools. So thank you very much for the work that you have done. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing now around, particularly around maybe the innovation businesses that you're supporting around AI.
Well, thank you. I mean, I have 2 or 3 companies in this space at the moment. One of the most significant ones is a company called ASI.tech. ASI.tech is a fully funded, innovative company, American registered, but Dubai-based founder. My founder and my chief executive is 20 years of age. So I would point out the most significant contribution I make to ASI is to bring up the average age of the company, which I do extremely well. But he's the most extraordinary young talent. Kudos Pata Vida. So initially the company is called Digest AI, now ASI.tech. Over the last 12 months, we won a major contract with the government of UAE, and we're building a conversational AI tutor literally across the whole region. That's in the process of being delivered. We have altogether today over 300,000 students on our pilot program, and that will grow into millions of students. We work collaboratively with both Microsoft and AWS. Microsoft, strategically, Mr. Nandela came to Dubai to meet Kudos and to meet the project. Extraordinary company, extraordinary opportunity, lots still in stealth, but a major initiative which would have an impact on the education sector fundamentally over the next coming years.
And so that the company, you said it has a conversational AI and it's a tutor. So is that working directly with students and taking them on a personalized learning path? Is that the intention?
You've just hit the nail on the head. So let me give you the differentiation. Well, first of all, let's just back up a bit, because I think that the subject of AI is challenging for many people. So let me just give you some context from my perspective. One of the things I think is critical is that an AI is built for purpose. I repeat, built for purpose. And what that means is it is built with a specific challenge, a specific mandate. And when you have an LLM or a series of LLMs and you train that LLM to a specific requirement, then magical things happen. The reason that's so important is not that there's anything wrong with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is an incredible tool, but it's a very broad-based tool. And the challenge you have with generative AI as a generalization is it's only as good as the question you ask. In other words, the whole issue of critical thinking, the whole issue of being able to ask the right question, being able to challenge your thoughts and your process into something that's meaningful is one of the challenges in generative AI. When you come to a built for purpose AI, It's much more focused on a specific set of circumstances. In this case, it is a tutoring platform in the first iteration for students at school age. So we have content that we train the AI specifically on, which is curated and structured in such a manner that it's relevant to the curriculum or to the requirements in a particular market. I mean, particularly in the UAE, you have challenges not just with the subject matter, but you also have challenges around culture. So you need to not just teach academic subjects, you have to also be mindful of the cultural sensitivities within a region. So that is what we do. The differentiation of the AI, and something we do, and I think we do it better than almost any other company I'm aware of, is that we understand, or the AI understands, the competency of the individual student. So in other words, you and I are both studying the same subject. You're extremely more intelligent than I am. So subsequently, although we're asking the same question on the same subject, the nuance of the question you're asking will be different from the nuance of the question I'm asking. And the AI has the competency and capability of identifying that interest level or that competency level, and will bring you back an answer relevant to your nuanced specific area of interest. That's a game changer. Follow that theory through. What you've now delivered is a personal learning journey and a personal learning outcome for every single student. Whether you've got 100, 100,000, a million, 100 million, effectively AI will recognize the learning journey of each individual student and the competency of each individual student in the specific subject that they're asking and questioning. Game changer.
That is a game changer. When the AI is looking at maybe my level of questions or the types of questions that I'm asking and the way that I'm asking them, is it judging that I am using language and words and thoughts and structure that is at a level that is different from someone else? Or is it comparing what I'm asking to the knowledge base, or both?
Well, I would say both. And I would say to you, it's like everything, the more you use it, the more dynamic it becomes and the more
Mm,
relevant it becomes. But I mean, if you just follow the principle, if you take a traditional classroom, and this, I mean, we've been teaching the same way fundamentally for 600 years. A teacher walks into the classroom, there's 30 kids sitting in front of him or her. The best that teacher can hope for is teaching the 20 kids that average out of the 30. So by default, there are 5 at the bottom of the class who are below average, and you need to identify their challenges and their particular requirements. But even, I would say, equally or even more importantly, there's 5 at the top of the class who are being dragged back to the average, unless you're in China, in which they put into a special classroom and made part of a government education program. But in all seriousness, that average is the best the teacher can hope for. I don't think there's any teacher that I've ever met who wouldn't want to be able to give a private tuition or a private engagement with every single student in the classroom, subject
right.
to their needs, subject to their requirements, subject to their interest and vocation.
And ASI is actually doing that now. That's what the
Yeah, that's what
program.
we
Oh,
do. That's what we built. That's what we're delivering.
fantastic. I,
Working in some, I mean, we have relationships with a number of very interesting organizations, including United Nations, Generation Unlimited, and others. We are being challenged to take this technology to some of the most challenging environments,
mm,
which is something we relish, both online and offline. No, remarkable company, remarkable founder, and the potential, well, already the existence of the company and what we're achieving today and what we'll achieve in the future is nothing less than remarkable.
what's the
But built from,
positioning?
sorry, what is?
What's the positioning? So is it for the hard, difficult, challenging, and maybe developing nations kind of environments?
No, we have aspirations to deliver it across all markets. I mean, we are currently
Okay.
focused with the government of the UAE, we're currently focused on school education, I mean, in certain age groups. But I mean, I'm also looking at, I'll give you another example where this is highly relevant. And I would point out this can be implemented in less than 30 seconds. It's delivered through WhatsApp. So effectively, you have a WhatsApp application.
Wow.
So it's live within 30 seconds. And within 3 to 10 minutes of using it, it already knows who you are and your interest and everything else. So very easy to implement, very easy to introduce. But I'll give you the other example. I'm also looking at the challenges in the health sector. If you take nursing, for example, and you take the challenges we've been through recently in terms of COVID. So a nurse or a doctor for that matter won't be going back to medical school to learn about vaccines and other areas. So you need to provide a very agile, intuitive environment and an environment that could be used when they have the time, because I mean, invariably nurses and doctors will be time poor. So having something like a digital tutor that is trained to specific areas of knowledge, which are validated and authenticated. And again, I repeat, the training of the AI and the built for purpose element of it is critical, because you don't want stuff that is, how do I put it, fake news or not fit for purpose content being attributed. So the ability for a nurse to have an AI tutor in his or her pocket, for them to be able to interrogate and ask questions about vaccines or whatever the set of circumstances are, and for that authentic content to be available to them while they're on the bus to work, while they're on the bus home, when they're taking a lunch break, effectively 24/7, 365 tutoring on every level. Game
Does that
changer.
tutoring also provide a certification or some sort of competency recognition as they move through training?
Oh, that's not our requirement. The point is, it's part of an integrated program. So in the program we're doing with the EOE, there are schools and colleges and universities. They would provide the accreditations that are
Right.
relevant to the students. This is literally a tutoring agent. So the ability to, and again, I repeat, built for purpose, authentic content, structured to the curriculum and to the cultures in the relevant markets and sectors, that drives that interaction. And we
Right.
have no content. I mean, we're not a content company. We reach out into the areas of content that would be attributed to those particular challenges and requirements in schools and organizations.
It's a really interesting point that you bring up about the sensitivity and culture and the differences in culture. So I'm developing some proposals for professional learning and development. I've built a knowledge base in Dante AI using the curriculum here in New Zealand, documentation around AI, professional development, and embedded in those documents is the culture of New Zealand, the flavor that the government and our environment is going for. So I know when I ask questions of the documentation of the database, I know that I'm getting responses from that perspective. So with ASI, is it a simple
Well,
thing?
let me give you another tangent, because you pick up on something which is, I think, really important. I'd like to share with your audience.
Mm.
Um, there are lots of technologies, education technologies, that are focused on curriculum and subject matter, let's say academic subject matter.
Mm.
I personally believe that another piece that is less focused or less well focused is referred to as social and emotional learning, or character and mindset. And
Mm.
I would argue the world we live in today, with distributed networks, with homeschooling, with people not working in offices or working from home, you now have challenges in terms of mindset and the issues around social emotional learning, perseverance, grit, mastery. So
Mm.
it's not a case of teaching subject matter, it's a case of helping people fulfill their potential. And I think a confluence or a combination of those factors is very much what the future looks like. It's very interesting because AI, particularly because of the characteristics I shared with you of understanding the personality or the interest or the focus of the students we have on ASI platform, we have the ability to understand their challenges. And that again leads into areas of, let's say, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and other areas which could be better catered for by a personal tutor, be it a digital tutor, than it can be perhaps within the construct of a traditional classroom or traditional college or university.
Mm. So if we were to implement that AI tutor in New Zealand, would it be I imagine it's not a simple thing, but very doable to bring in the New Zealand curriculum, the documentation around that, examples of policies, procedures, the style of teaching, which is very inquiry based in New Zealand,
Absolutely.
that could all be recognized.
Well, the area I'm working on, I mean, with ASI, I'm currently talking to governments. I'm talking to fairly large organizations, or in some cases, in some countries, you have regional education initiatives. I mean, in Canada, you have a number of states that we want to explore. In
Mm.
South America, for example, in Brazil, it's federal. So you have the federal environments. The USA obviously also has 50 states. So you have to be able to negotiate and to bring that. But I'm looking at government interactions. I mean, quite frankly, I would be very excited to talk to New Zealand. And if I'm allowed to say Australia as well, is that permissible to a New Zealander? As
We'll
long as we
forgive
don't
you.
discuss rugby, I think we'll
That's
be on
right.
safe ground. Is that fair? Or cricket? That would be the other subject. No, but the point is, it's a government initiated, or it's a Department of Education, or it's a major organization. So where this works, and again, one of the issues or challenges of AI, it has to be delivered at scale. It's actually much harder to deliver a solution to 50 or 100 students than it would be to deliver it to 100,000 students. So when you work at scale, then the algorithms and the competence of the AI kicks in and becomes extremely more considerably more efficient.
Right. What else have you got? What else are you doing?
Okay, so I have another company, or actually it's two companies, Ground Floor and Traverse. So these are young entrepreneurs, not as young as my first entrepreneurs, so I won't embarrass them with their ages, but they're still considerably younger than I am, out of Cape Town in South Africa. And what Michael and Nick have achieved is that they understand how to construct curriculum. So the reason I mention that is that they are pedagogy specialists. So they can take raw content, develop it into courseware, and they work with some major universities globally. I mean, through South Africa, also in America, UK, and other places. They're very, very good at what they do. But it was very interesting because when we first started talking, it was apparent to me that they had a skill, which is a skill that is particularly applicable to the AI environment. And the term I would use is the term that Microsoft called Copilot. So just to briefly explain, Microsoft invested 13 billion into OpenAI. Then they found that they can't just provide a technology, they have to provide a service with the technology. That service is fundamentally called Copilot. And Copilot is basically structuring the AI to the needs of enterprise clients. So it's doing exactly what I suggested earlier. It's making it relevant, it's making it built for purpose. So the pedagogy piece from an academic point of view is really critical, because what you're doing is you're constructing content, you're making it relevant, you're making it purposeful for the academic structures or the cultural structures that are relevant. So the pedagogy specialist in Copilot is critical. So when you train the AI, there's a level of authenticity that is directly matched immediately. So again, ASI is not a content company. Traverse and Ground Floor are content aggregators and people who work on that curriculum structure. And I think that it's, again, your audience might find it interesting. I personally believe that the whole Copilot opportunity, or this building this middleware, is going to be critical to so many different parts of the AI environment. And I mean, if I need to develop that further, hopefully I've already described it in the conversation we've just been having.
You have. So Ground Floor, curriculum development, AI, ASI, the tutoring environment. Yep. What else you got?
Okay, you asked, so I'll tell you. When I was at Apple, a colleague of mine, a guy called James Boggs, worked very closely with me. He worked in the iTunes team. I worked on the Apple education team. When I left to go to China, James, who's an American, returned to the US and went to Cupertino. And James Boggs has been effectively the managing director of the podcast portal at Apple for some 12 to 14 years. He left Apple it's about almost 2 years ago now. He has a company called Spooler.fm. And Spooler.fm is a platform for developing podcasting channels. So one of the problems or challenges of podcasting initially was that basically you would access your content through either Apple or Spotify. But now you can actually, through Spooler, you can have your own dedicated channels. You can have an education channel, a university channel, a subject channel, a special enterprise channel. That's what Spooler does. It provides the tools to achieve that. But when we started collaborating and working together again, it became obvious to me there was something else needed to be addressed. And one of the challenges with a podcast is it is, to a certain extent, long form content. In other words, it has a 15-minute, 20-minute, 1 hour, 1.5 hour length to it. And although it can be segmented, it can be made modular, it's very difficult to search it contextually. So imagine for a moment, you have your own dedicated education podcast channel on a particular subject, and you have multiple podcasts, 20, 30, 50, 100, 150, 350, as many as you like. Imagine you could go and interrogate that podcast channel by context. So basically, ask it a question, and it would bring you back the references, not from one podcast, but from multiple podcasts within that environment.
That's awesome.
So we're currently working and building that. We're working with a number of strategic partners, including ASU, Arizona State University, and others. And I just got off a call with James before this, and we'll be at GSV ASU conference in San Diego in April, and you'll be able to see some of this work coming together.
I love that idea of making accessible to anyone, video content, audio content, which you just can't search previously. You couldn't find that content. You might find it in one video or one podcast, but being able to go out and through all of that knowledge base, be able to pull out the information, that's a real step forward.
But there's another piece to this, Craig, and I think that one of the terms that's coming up increasingly in the work that I'm involved in is the word trust, the trust coefficient, the trust environment. And I think, again, there's a misconception of what AI is or what AI does. So my point is, I come back to where I started this conversation in terms of being built for purpose. If it's built for purpose and you embed that trust coefficient into it, and you're dealing with authentic content from reputable, respected academic institutions and publishers for that matter, because the publishing industry has been disrupted considerably and needs to be disrupted, but let's not get into that for this moment. But the point being that built for purpose, trusted, authentic environment are the key drivers of the sort of work I'm involved in, the sort of people that I work with directly.
So, Alan, just to wrap up, and I really, really appreciate your time and you sharing everything that you're doing now. What would be one thing you would say to an educational leader, a principal, a director of instruction? What would you say to them to make their first steps towards leveraging AI for their students' benefit?
Okay, that's a really good question. It's a tough question. And I'm going to tell you what I think, not what I should say. Be brave. Okay, we're at the beginning of a journey, not the middle or the end of a journey, but be brave. I think that as an educator, you have to look at it from a consumption point of view. In other words, what are the objectives here? And the objectives here are to help students become the best version of themselves. And whether they're young, middle, old, lifelong learning, it's the same thing. So the point is, it's about consumption at the end of the day, and it's about helping an individual be the best version of themselves and to achieve what it is they want to achieve at whatever level they want to achieve it. And that's not about exams or accreditation. It's just learning. I mean, we're all learning. So if I'm an academic, and I am an academic, and you are too, I think you need to be brave. I think you need to experiment. You need to also evaluate. I mean, let me also out you in the project we're doing with the government of UAE. When I developed the contract with them, I stipulated that we wanted an independent audit of what we're doing. In other words, an academic institution who are probably going to be quite skeptical to actually audit what we're doing and evaluate what we're doing on a week-to-week, day-to-day, month-to-month basis for two reasons. One, we would learn by that. In other words, although we think we know it all and we're very smart and we're heading in a certain direction, we could learn by that audit, because sometimes the skeptic in the room can be very interesting in terms of helping us understand what's possible and what's not possible. But I do think that independent audit and that skepticism, but to come back to your specific question, be brave, experiment, try, break things, learn from things, and find the right strategic partners to work with who can help you achieve your objectives.
That's great. Alan, thank you so much for your time.
Welcome. Thank you.